Hi, this is Eric from ADBUZZ Canada, and this is Carl Jones, the VP Creative, Executive Creative Director of Gray Canada. So, can you tell us a little about yourself and what your background is?
Yeah. So I originally went to the Ontario College of Art quite a few years ago, and I went to study painting, saw the teachers, took the classes, was not inspired, but then I saw that there was advertising and I thought that was pretty cool. So then I majored and left OCA doing advertising. Got a job just before I left OCA as a junior art director for a Canadian company. And I worked at various Canadian advertising agencies for 9 years. And then I got bored, and my career, I felt, was not growing rapidly. It sort of had grown, and then it sort of reached the ceiling. A recession was happening in Canada at that point. So then I decided, because my background is art direction, that I would try and work in another country. And if you work in a country that you don't speak the language, hey, you have a writer and they speak that language, so as long as you speak English, you can do it, right? Well, it worked. But I originally wanted to go to Asia, but I don't know, the money wasn't great and everything. And then I was offered a job in Mexico City or Buenos Aires in Argentina, and I picked Mexico City just because I thought it was exciting, close to Toronto and Britain, so I could travel easy. And they spoke better English there than other countries. So I moved to Mexico City 17 years ago. I worked for 4 different advertising agencies there. And I was really into digital. Even though my background's mass media, I really like doing digital and ambient advertising, and it was hard to do that in Mexico City just because the clients just believe mostly in TV and mass media. And a job came up in Canada which offered me digital work as well as mass media work, and I was doing digital in Mexico, but it just wasn't enough. So I moved to Toronto a year ago, and here I am still at Gray Advertising, and 50% of our work is in digital, and the other 50% is in TV and print and outdoor, but our campaigns are integrated and they work in all mediums, which I really like, and I mean, that's definitely the future of advertising.
So for all those, those would-be creative directors and copywriters, what kind of challenges do you think they face trying to get into the industry today versus maybe even when you started out?
I think the schools, I've gone to portfolio nights and I've seen quite a few portfolios in this city, and I think the schools are churning out people they give them mostly print ads and billboards to do, so the schools are concentrating on ideas, but I think digital, you have to sort of think a different way. And so my point is when I see the portfolios, I always send them back and I ask them sort of to take an idea and show how it works in different mediums. Because that seems to be the thing right now is if you can come up with an idea that can be expressed in different media, that is better than just doing one-offs like a really cool banner ad, but it's not it can't work in TV, or you're doing like an app. You can't just be single-minded on stuff. You've got to be bigger if you want to continue working in advertising. Another interesting thing I'm noticing right now is that there are a lot of people from my generation who were more based in mass media, and they haven't adapted or embraced digital, and those people seem to be dropping off like flies. And then there's the digital people who don't understand mass media, and so we have these sort of 2 groups of people. And then what's happening, there are younger people who are kind of getting it and grew up digitally and understand mass media and digital. So those people will, I think, survive and get those jobs in the future. But at the end of the day, it's going to be the big idea. And you have to come up with big ideas. Look at Cannes and you will see what is winning. It's the idea, not the actual technique or the, those little one-offs.
I guess for the education system, do you think they are doing enough to actually teach these next generation creatives about what they need to do to be really successful in a transitional phase? Like we are, transitioning over the last 5-6 years and on to kind of a new media age where everything is everywhere. Like how do they, really compete in that area?
Well, I think a lot of the teachers are older, so they really don't understand this new way of doing advertising, so I don't think they're preparing the students. We're all learning on the job, and what I'm doing here at Gray is that I don't have digital and mass media. What we have is a creative department, we don't have silos, and I'm training the digital people to think in mass, and working on TV. I have them doing that, and I have the mass people working on digital projects. So there's a cross-pollination. And I believe that is the best model that I know, because like there's so many models out there, who knows what's going to win, but I feel that what I'm doing right now is working, and it will be the way. So my point is that I think people are going to have to learn on the jobs and teach themselves. Schools can teach you to come up with ideas, and then I think you need to get an internship, and then just do your own research and look on things, sites like I Have an Idea, Best Ads on TV, Ads of the World, and various blogs that are out there like ADBUZZ, and just sort of see what's happening and teach yourself. The information's there. You don't have to have a teacher teaching you now. You can teach yourself.
So, going back on to some of your background, what were some of the inspirations behind, some of the campaigns you worked on, like some of the most successful ones you've worked on, like, name a campaign and what was the spark for that idea?
I'm going to talk a bit about my experience in Mexico. The thing is, in Mexico, they have aspirational advertising, meaning that they don't necessarily reflect, everything is aspirational, everything will be better if you buy this product. So they show upper class people living in upper class world, and also people physically that don't look like your typical Mexican. I have an issue with that, because I think you should show the people as they are, but Mexico wasn't that way. But we did the Alka-Seltzer campaign, and my idea was to reflect the way people lived, the way they speak, and the colloquial ways, and take the Mexican humor and put it in a campaign. It was one of the first times that was done, and it was a campaign that lasted 10 years and ended up becoming the most awarded campaign in Mexico at that time. My point was I reflected the society of what was happening through the advertising. I think a lot of influences in advertising, you have to go to movies, theater, read books, magazines, just go out to clubs, know music, because that is where you get your inspiration from. And also looking at the, Mad Men. It sounds weird, but a lot of things that are happening in Mad Men are being reflected right now. Like in Mad Men, they talk about when TV comes in, and they're like, why are you having a TV department? Like everything's print, and we know that's happening with digital right now. And also I find a lot of younger people don't understand the great people that changed and created advertising, because advertising is a new business. Modern advertising has only been around for 50 years. So there's great art directors like George Lois, and he did covers for Esquire magazine, for example, and they were ideas. And even though they don't look that modern, they still represent concepts, and a lot of young people don't know who those people are. And I think typography and all those crafts that people had before, I think are being lost because of the computer. So it's very important that people look back in history and see the learnings from there and then apply it to the future.
So, technology moves at such a rapid pace. What kind of new technologies are you really interested in getting into, or like new AR, and that's kind of old hat now.
Right.
But what do you want to use, or that maybe you haven't used already?
Okay, well, we created a project last year called the Mood Clock, and I wanted to create a case study for us and also have learnings. So this Mood Clock is it's moodclock.greycanada.com, and it's a website, and it's a clock that it tells time. And also, when you see the time of the city, you can also go in and see the pictures that are being uploaded at that moment from people living in the city at that time. And you can see what the most tweeted word is, the most Googled word is. So I came up with that idea. An art director here called Todd Lawson helped visualize it. A great job he did. And then our programmers here then built it. So that was a learning experience for us. So that was building the web application. Then we had to take that and do a desktop application. So we had to have a learning there. Now I'm asking for an app. So we're still building it, sending it to Apple. It's getting rejected, so they send it back, and then we're making tweaks. But it's a learning process. And so that's been really good for that. And I've been reading recently about how, you have HTML5, and then apps are the big thing. Well, in the future, apps are like just mini websites, basically. So, and the problem with apps is the fact that you have different phone companies or phone platforms, BlackBerry, and you have the iPhone, and you have the Android. So you have to make a separate app for each of them.
Which can get very expensive very quickly.
Right, but you have HTML5, so if you make everything mobile-based with one platform, then you don't really need to have apps. You just need to give people addresses, and they can see the website that's mobile-based on their phone. So that will be the next thing. So I'm interested in that. And that'll be happening in the next 2 years, I guess.
I think you're definitely right about where apps are going. Like, especially for apps, will remain for like games and things that really dig deep into hardware. But on the software side, if you're just doing news releases, then I don't really need a Mashable app or a random blog app. It's just if once the processors and speeds are fast enough, it will allow us to do a lot better and a lot easier, and basically a lot easier for all the brands to actually do it, and all the companies, instead of creating 5 different things, they just create one, and that's where they go.
Exactly. Exactly.
So, like, I guess my next question would be about for current students that like maybe they want to go into internationally. What kind of advice would you give them, being someone that came from was from Canada and then went internationally? What do they need to watch out for? What is the process like to get there, and how long until they can actually go and realistically go that far if they want to?
Okay, I think if some Canadian wants to go international, kudos. I think that's amazing, because I find that Canada is very introspective. All Canadians look at is Canada and Toronto and Vancouver, Montreal, and what's happening there. And when you live outside of Canada, you realize that the world doesn't care about Canada. We're not really on the scene, and I'm sorry to say that, but it's true. We do win some awards in Canada and stuff, but you need to think more global. So, look at those global websites, blogs, and also if you can leave the country, go to places like Brazil, go to China, go to India. Don't go to Britain, don't go to the US, because those aren't growing markets. India, China, Brazil are where people are spending more money. There's growth there. They're more willing to accept and try new ideas, and they're more willing to accept people coming from outside and integrating in their culture, because they're more positive about that, and then you will learn a lot. And also, it's an exciting thing, going to another country, living in another culture, and absorbing that and expressing it through advertising. It's a good thing. Then you can come back to Canada with your learnings and then do well here, and you'll have a better vision of the world and not just be so myopic, I think the word is.